Hi, good morning. Wonderful welcome to your favorite show, the 360-degree lifestyle show with me, Pastor Dime Alabi. Your finishing touch is the 360 Foundation Unlimited's goal and vision for this nation and for the rest of the continent. That it doesn't matter how much schooling you do, there is a certain education that we need to be able to get the finishing touch of professionalism, of your own well-being, complete success, spirit, soul, and body. And that's what the 360-degree lifestyle show is about. And last week, Uncle Ebo said something. What you think of others is a true reflection of your own mindset. And this week we're discussing the brain. So what is going on in your mind and your brain, the signals you receive, and the thoughts and the attitudes, perceptions, understanding of others is actually a true reflection of what's going on in your mind. And this is by Uncle Ebo White, who we've had for the last 2 weeks. And I hope you enjoyed him. And we reviewed some books with him and we talked about life. Of course, you can catch some of these interviews. If you missed the last 2 weeks or even last week's interview, you can catch them on Twitter at Alabi Dime, on Twitter, Facebook Dime Alabi 360, Instagram Dime 360, YouTube Dime Alabi, or call us on 0269787582 if you have anything to discuss. If you have a book for review, you can still contact us on the number 0274533469 or of course 0269787582 on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Email me dimealabi@gmail.com if you want your book reviewed or you have some questions on your life or you want some coaching, some training for your corporate entity or for your personal life. You can contact us. So now you can WhatsApp us on 0274533469 or 020 quadruple 2054 027453469 or 020 quadruple 2054. Now, what are we discussing? We're discussing the brain. Last week, we looked at the importance of the brain, the constituent of the brain, the fact that you have a mid, back brain, hind brain. Okay, now we're going to look at what the brain requires for us to be healthy in our brain. And one of the things the brain requires is glucose. And the body needs glucose for energy. 70% of the body's glucose energy actually is used up by the brain. And hence, that's why, if your child is going to school, you're going to work, and you want to actually optimize your productivity or learn and retain the things that you learn, you need to ensure that you have a lot of glucose in your system. However, not the wrong kind of glucose. And as a student, you should understand why when you're hungry, you can't learn very well because there's less glucose being transmitted into your brain, and so you struggle to pay attention. In fact, it affects your attention, focus, memory, and also affects your whole body function. And so you need glucose, which is gotten from foods we eat and supplies us energy. But however, a lot of parents are doing the wrong things. I don't want to mention the names, but the soft drinks and all the milks and things are not necessarily the only sources of glucose. You need to give your child a lot of fruits, which gives them natural glucose. Potatoes, I mean sweet potatoes, which we have here. We talked about the importance of sweet potatoes for the eye, for the skin, and now for the brain. And you also need avocado or pear, which most of us would not go for our children's snack or breakfast in the morning. But that's the kind of thing you need to kickstart your day and get your brain activated for your child, for yourself. If you're adult student, you need to do that. And when it comes to physical illness, we should understand that, this statistics has been around for over 20 years, that 50 to 70% of all illnesses are psychologically induced or psychosomatically induced. And you need to understand that the function of your brain, and mindset goes to affect you physically as well. The third thing, practical thing you can do for your child, and today I'm talking to parents a lot because children, are beginning life and we need to equip and empower them, and make sure that they start off right so they can end well. Now, one of the things I do for my children is read aloud to my children. Let them and reason with them. A lot of us are too busy on our WhatsApps and all that. We are not reading and asking and interacting with our children. But what that actually does is to make the child think and make the child reason. You know, the brain is like elastic. It's elastic. You can stretch it as far as you can get it, and you can shrink it also. I remember the facts we heard last week that by the age of 18, the brain size actually stops growing. So which means that if you don't stretch the child's brain as far as he or she can get before the age of 18, you actually stunt their future development. It's very important for you to give your child the right kinds of foods, not the soft drinks and the biscuits and all that, but go for natural things to produce glucose. Now, men and women's bodies react differently to pain. The threshold of pain is also part of the brain's function. Okay, in fact, your whole actions and inactions are determined by messages transmitted by the brain to your various organs, determines how you function, you know, through your spinal cord, which is, you know, is a major connection to your other organs. And so the threshold of women's body for pain, they say, is higher. Okay, and that's because women have less of testosterone. Men have more of that, and so the endurance for pain is less. That's what they say. But I think that for me as a woman, I think probably for childbirth, you need a certain endurance for childbirth. That's probably why women have been given that, because I think it's the wildest pain. I mean, there's a lot of, this is not a sealed fact, okay? There's a lot of discussions and research going on about this issue, so we need to look at that. And also the neural fibers that control emotions and the part that interprets it are naturally bigger in women, all to do with the brain. Well, maybe that, and I also think that probably because a woman has to bear an alien body in their body for 9 months, you need to have a certain extra neural fibers to be able to help you have self-control, to be able to handle your emotions. And that's what I think, you know, because that's what you go through in pregnancy. That's probably why that is. So usually men think before they feel, but women feel before they think. We use our emotions a lot. I think we're going to end there. Now, what's my health code for today? My health code for today is about rest, okay? It's important that a healthy mind is very important. We need to have a healthy mind if we're going to have a healthy body. What you think, what goes on in your brain is what makes you actually healthy. And so one of the things I would suggest is that we rest. We need to rest. We need to rest, and we need to take the right kinds of foods to help our brain activity. And that, I'm getting some WhatsApps in, but I'm going to ignore it for now. So that is what we are talking about, brain. Now, what to avoid? Animal products, like you need to avoid animal products, okay? But you need to have some fresh fish, you know, eggs. You need to avoid fatty foods, donuts, all those things, French fries and all those things are not important. You need to avoid them. And what's our amazing health fact? The amazing health fact for today, what's our amazing health fact for today? I'm trying to get the amazing health fact for today. Yeah, the tongue is the strongest muscle in the entire human body. Can you beat that? Not your bones, not your, you know, even your skull. No, the tongue is the strongest part of the human body. Amazing. And you can only get that on 360-degree lifestyle show, where we give you information to help your life improve and have success. Okay, now the health code for today is that healthy, if you're healthy, you're wealthy and you're wise. So your health is important. It saves you money and it helps your brain activity as well. We're going to go into the books and more segment, and I have a very special guest in the house this morning. And what's the book I'm reviewing this morning? Joy Through the Furnace. Joy Through the Furnace is a book. I'm Jacqueline. Aquah is a book I'm reviewing today. So I'm going to go to her in a minute. This is a very interesting book, and I believe that if you're a Christian, you'd want to go for this book because it's going to help you. I think it contradicts some of the errors, some of the things that are going on in Christendom and people's mindset and perceptions of pain, perceptions of adversities, and not realizing that some things are actually to define you. So that's what we're going to discuss with Jacqueline Aquah. So I'm going to go to my guest in a minute to ask who she is and what she does and what inspired her. So I'm going to go and sit with my guest in a minute. Don't go away. I'll be right back. The book on today's show is Joy Through the Furnace by Jacqueline Aquah. Hi, Jackie. You're welcome to the 360-degree Lifestyle Show. Yeah. So tell us, who is Jackie?
Okay. Thank you very much, Pastor Dume.
Yes.
My name is Jackie, as you said, and good morning to your viewers and listeners. I'm a pharmacist by training, but I double as the president of Cedar Sprouts. Cedar Sprouts is a non-governmental Christian organization, and we mainly focus on mentoring and outreaches in second cycle and tertiary institutions. Yeah. So I double as that, and then most importantly, I'm a child of God.
You're a child of God. Now, you're also you work with Pfizer, right?
Right.
And you're on the board of Pfizer. Okay, so tell us about what got you into the pharmaceuticals in the first place.
Okay. Just a little correction. I'm not on the board of Pfizer, but I sit on the medical council for Pfizer in Ghana, Nigeria, and the East Africa region. So, yes. What got me into the world of pharmaceuticals? After secondary school, I must say I had very little information about pharmacy. And then there was a pastor who used to live, he was a neighbor. So he met my parents and then he said, oh, okay, what about pharmacy? So I thought, I had done science, and you know, in Ghana, everybody who does science is assumed to move on to do medicine. Yeah. So he came and he said, oh, pharmacy, it looks like a very good and thriving profession. So I applied for pharmacy and then I got it, and here I am. Okay. I think it's been a phenomenal journey. I haven't regretted one bit being a pharmacist.
Now, Joy Through the Furnace, the imagery of a furnace doesn't look good or feel good to anybody. Yeah. Then you're talking about the joy. When you talk about joy, it's an excitement, a feeling of excitement, and hilarious, and just where every human being wants to get to. Then on the other end, you have furnace. Now, what made you choose to write on this topic, joy and the furnace? Because they're quite opposite in nature. Yeah.
Right. We live in a world where contemporary Christianity, I believe, has been a bit distorted. And people think that if you come to God, if it's all about give me, get me, and what I can get. And so the moment people feel a little agitation, then they move out of a relationship with God. What God is calling us to is a relationship beyond everything else. And a lot of times God is present, and he has promised that even when we go through tough times, he's going to be with us, so that you can go through tough times and still have that sense of inner peace and inner joy. even though the circumstances might not seem appropriate, might not seem right, you can exude such exuberance that people look at you and they begin to admire you. Yes. So that's what we're talking about, that it's not just about, I mean, your disposition shouldn't be based on your circumstances.
Yeah.
Your circumstances do not have to define you. There's something bigger that defines you beyond your circumstances.
Yeah. In your book, chapter 2, you talk about two different kinds of affliction: self-induced affliction and affliction for refinement.
Right.
Okay. Now, can we clarify that? Because I think that's a major phenomenon in Christian where people are confused about affliction. They think, and of course, you use Job and you use the woman, the man who had been at the pool of Bethsaida for 38 years. So now, what is the difference between affliction for refinement and self-induced affliction? And what made you come up with that analogy?
Okay. I talk about self-induced because there are certain things that can arise as a result of cause and effect. For instance, if you're a student, you've been sent to school to study, and you're not studying, you're doing other things, you're going to fail your exam.
Yeah.
And that's the consequence of the choices that you have made. So there are sometimes when, based on the choices that we make, they result in certain things, that certain conditions or circumstances that might not be too pleasant. Yes. So in that case, you say that that is self-induced, or you're playing in the rain. The
and
following
you catch
day,
a cold.
You catch a cold, exactly.
And you blame the devil.
And then you blame the devil. You're thinking, oh, I'm sick, and you're blaming the devil. You're living an unhealthy, today we're talking about health. You're living an unhealthy lifestyle, and you're wondering why your health is deteriorating. So there are certain things that you do that definitely will put you in certain bad situations, and those are self-induced. But there are other times when you actually go through circumstances through no fault of yours.
Yeah.
Like the man who was at the pool of Bethesda, he was born blind.
Yeah.
And when the disciples came, if you read the account, the disciples came to Jesus and said, who sinned? Was it his mother or his father? And he said, no one sinned.
No one sinned.
Yes, so sometimes there are instances, and even in the case of Job, it wasn't as a result of anything that he himself did. It was just the devil who went to God and said, okay, this man has been blessed, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually God gave him the opportunity to, God just allowed him. But it wasn't as a result of something he did. So, yes.
Okay.
So those are
now, on pages 59 and 65 of your book, you talk about better and not bitter. So you're looking at the attitude with which we must see the negatives or some of the mishaps or some of the challenges. And I've read so many biographies and autobiographies of people that were rejected in a particular area. I could also count my stories where the rejections I had actually moved me on to better things. Exactly. So better and not bitter is, for me, is so inspiring. So a lot of people give up when they face bitter situations or they're rejected, either in a relationship, at work. Should we say Oprah, who was told you can never be a TV personality because you're too big. I remember when I wanted to go to Metro, someone said to me, oh, he's never going to accept you on air because he likes slim, certain young people on air. And I didn't even ask him to put me on. He put me on air. So you see that you go through, but that could have discouraged me and for me to say, no, I'm not even attempting. I don't want anyone to. So what are your experiences that made you write some of these things in your book?
Okay, right. Well, I have had some very bad personal experiences, but out of that experience that I had, my ministry was birthed. Cedar Sprouts came through my grieving moments. It was in the moments when I was actually mourning that Cedar Sprouts was birthed. And so sometimes, as you're saying, we can go through circumstances. There are so many great people who have gone through very, very bad situations. For instance, Joyce Meyer, she was raped by her own father several times. If we talk about the late Nelson Mandela, for instance, he was someone who spent several years in prison. And yet he came out to be the president. So there are things that we go through in life. And whilst we're going through the things, the circumstances, we have two options. You can decide that I'm going to let this circumstance hamper me. I'm going to hold on to those circumstances, be bitter about you. And you might not not just be bitter about the situation, but also about people, what people have said about the situation, what people have said about you, the rejection, and so on and so forth. And you can be so focused on the bitterness that you don't advance.
Okay.
So you need to be able to actually move beyond focusing on that bitterness and the pain and the rejection so that you can advance. And until you're able to put away the bitterness, you're not moving forward.
And that's what modern day psychologists, corporate, you know, in corporate training, we call it emotional intelligence. So managing your pains, managing difficulties, getting around the crooked bends, how to do it intelligently without it affecting or you losing something that's precious to you, like your job, your relationship, you know. So one of the things I love about, someone would say, you know, this is a religious book, but no, you know, for me, as a trainer, as somebody that's done psychology, as somebody that's been a corporate person, I connect these things into practical life, that you need to manage your situation. And that's why I love the book, Joy Through the Furnace. You may be going through some furnace, but you need to figure out how you can emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically work your way out of that situation with as little harm as possible. That is so crucial. Of course, our WhatsApp numbers are 02745334469, 02022222054. Send us your WhatsApps. I'll be reading them in a few minutes. But I want to ask you, what is your most challenging moment that drove you? Because every writer has a drive that drove you to write this book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in 2014, late November, I lost my husband with a child, and at that time, my child was he was perhaps a year old, just a little over a year old at the time, and it was such a trying moment for me. And you know, at that point, you feel like, I mean, you can be so down and you might not move forward, and people tend to point fingers at you and tend to tag the situation, and everybody wants to
you could have done something better.
Exactly, everybody wants to define the situation. Yes, and so it was at that point that and then growing up, my whole perception about God, because I got to know God at a very tender age, and so my whole perception was, okay, so I pray it and then it happens. So everything has just been, even throughout my life, I've just been, everything about my life has just fallen in place just like that. So I come to that one spot that for the first time, it was a rude shock to me. And then I began to think, okay, so does it mean that God has forsaken me? Does it mean, what does it mean? And what does this spot mean? I went back into the scriptures and then I started searching for answers, because for me, that is the only place that usually I go to for answers. And so the more I searched, the more I realized that there were people that walked with God that went through very, very dire situations, contrary to what we think in contemporary Christian terms, where everything is give me, get me, you come to church, the next moment you should get married, the next moment you should have a child, the next moment you should have a child, everything should be all bliss. Now, I'm not trying to defy the power of God or deny the finished works of Christ, but I'm saying that there's a place in our walk with God, or even in our Christianity, or whatever it is that you believe, that you would face challenging moments. But even in that place, the presence of God is still with you.
But that's part of the refining, you know. That's why I like that, because Jesus himself said, pick up your cross and follow. So it's part of the refining process. Everything is a process.
But most people
don't understand that. That's because they're not hearing it enough. And that's why I'm so glad for Joy Through the Furnace, because I think it's a contemporary, relatable issue to our modern day Christian perception and lifestyle, and so we need to do that. Now, of course, on the books review, we have our homophones and our homographs that we do. Our homophones are pet, okay? Pet means to stroke something. You know, I'm petting you, I'm giving you a stroke, I'm caressing you. And then you also have your pet, your domestic animal, a dog, a goat, you know, a cat, you know. And we have throwing a fit. Okay, that's a tantrum. We call them the terrible twos especially, but sometimes you have adults who throw fit, which is not the best. That's like a It's a very negative cycle. It's just means that you haven't developed psychologically and emotionally to the age, to match your age. And so, and then you also have to fit into something, or to fit like a color fits, you know, this color fits you, or this dress is fitting for that, you know, so fit to match something. So those are the two homophones that we are talking about today. And of course, this show is brought to you by kind courtesy of 360-degree Lifestyle. It's a show that wants to take care of your complete psychological, emotional, mental, physical well-being. And so we give you the finishing touch through our conference speaking and executive coaching, corporate teacher and church workers training. Okay, now the final thing we're going to talk about is we're going on to the corporate segment, and of course we are looking at S, which is study. You need to study. You need to study things. You need to study for yourself, and then you need to also then, after you've studied, you need to disseminate that information. You don't store the information you've studied. You take it out, and that helps you to grow more. And you have the T. You need to be able to teach others what you have studied. Is key. You don't hoard it. You need to teach others, and you need to have understanding. That's the U, STU. You need to have understanding. So that is our day. I've been speaking to Jacqueline Aquah, who is an author, who is also a pharmacist, and through her trial, she has come out with the book Joy Through the Furnace, which is being launched this Saturday at the African Regent. Have a wonderful week. The 360-degree team, thank you so much for everything. And I'll see you same time next week. Bye-bye.